He's a ladies' man. Massages with oils.
Love is war to the victim of the spoils. It's Jeff's digital audio experience. Featuring Craig.
All right, we just walked out of the theater from seeing Spider-Man No Way Home.
It's true. You've seen it once already. This is
Yes.
your second time.
Yep, second viewing.
This is my first viewing. And I'm Craig.
And I'm Jeff,
And welcome to Jeff's Digital Audio Experience.
featuring Craig.
Yes. This is going to be episode 100 of the Half-Ass Horrorcast. This is
wow.
Yeah, like we've had obviously other types of episodes or whatever, but as far as the lineup, this will be episode 100. So
Wow. Here
it all
is.
comes back to the beginning when
Yeah.
it was just you and me.
2008.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, we're literally in the parking lot outside the theater. We just watched it. And I am very happy. I really enjoyed it.
I did too. Like we said, this is my second viewing of it.
Yeah,
and after I saw it, I told you, I was like, "Oh man, you got to see this." I texted you. I was like, I just saw the new Spider-Man. It was dope. And you wrote back, "Is that sarcasm?"
Yeah, I thought you were being sarcastic for sure. Yeah.
And I was like, "No, it's really good. Like you need to see this movie." So I talked you into it.
Yeah, I mean, because to be honest, I love comic book movies and I love the MCU, but after Endgame, I kind of felt done. Like,
Yeah.
I kind of felt like I'm cool with like just letting the rest of it go, and you know, like I'll watch it at some point, but I'm not going to make a big point of seeing Marvel movies anymore. And this is the first one I've seen in the theater since Endgame.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
only seen on cable or Disney Plus since then. And even though there's a Hawkeye show that people keep telling me to watch, because I'm a big Hawkeye guy and I love the Matt Fraction Hawkeye run that the new show is based on, I still haven't seen it. I haven't gone out of my way to watch it or anything.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either.
Yeah.
I saw the other two shows. Well, I saw WandaVision and Loki.
Yeah, I saw those as well. And I watched the Winter Soldier and Falcon. I just didn't do any of it as appointment television. Like, I
Right,
watched
yeah.
it just whenever I got around to it. So,
Yeah, it sort of seems like everything from the MCU post Endgame kind of feels like an afterthought. Like, it doesn't really feel like it's that big of a deal or anything.
yeah, it,
you know?
it feels like fan fiction to me. Like, it
Yeah.
it's like good, but it doesn't feel very pertinent to me or something
Yeah.
that I have to see, and I'm fine.
I will say the WandaVision I thought was really good. I thought
Yeah.
that was really well done. But like, I was really surprised by this movie, by No Way Home, like how much I liked it. And it kind of, it hits the ground running when it starts, because the way the last movie ended, and Mysterio announces to the world that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and so like right out of the gate, Spider-Man has to deal with this problem. And I like this movie because it feels like this is the first one of the MCU movies where like Peter Parker feels like a kid to me. Like, even though we've seen him in high school and stuff, but like the idea of him, like one of his biggest concerns in the movie is getting into college.
Yeah.
And I love the relationship between him and his two friends, or his girlfriend and his best friend.
Yeah, Ned and MJ.
Yeah. But I think like the biggest thing that makes this movie, well, not the biggest thing, but it was something that I noticed this time around watching it that dawned on me. I was like, oh, part of what makes this feel like a Spider-Man movie is the fact that it's all in New York City.
Yum.
Because the last movie was all in, weren't they like in Italy?
The last movie was in Europe. I think it
Yeah.
kind of jumps around different places in
Yeah.
Europe. Yeah.
So yeah, they're in Europe in the last movie, and in the first movie they're like in high school and stuff.
Yeah, it's
and
in
didn't-
Queens. The first
Yeah.
movie was relatively grounded, but so much of Iron Man is in it
Yeah.
that it felt like Spider-Man was like Iron Man Jr. Like, he
Right.
wasn't really Peter Parker. He was almost like a different character altogether. Like, I like Tom Holland and I like the MCU, and I appreciate they try to do something a little bit different. But I mean, to me, Spider-Man is a kid in Queens who is struggling to be a regular person.
Yeah.
And they lost that big time, because in the very first movie he's an Avenger basically,
Right.
and that kind of changes his dynamic quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think that's what a big part of what made me like this movie so much is it actually feels like a Spider-Man movie
Yeah.
this time around, and like, and you know, we're also spoiler if you haven't seen the movie.
Yeah, we should just go ahead
Yeah.
and say, like, I mean, surely goodness you've seen Spider-Man No Way Home at this point if you're going to listen to this. But if
Yeah.
you haven't, please go and see it because we're going to spoil the hell out of it.
Yeah.
We have no... we're not going to be able to contain it, so
Yeah.
just prepare yourself.
Yeah, so from here on out, we're going all balls out on spoilers.
But definitely big recommendation from Jeff and Craig.
Yeah.
Definitely see it.
Definitely check it out. There's... So, like, 5 of the villains from the previous 2 Spider-Man franchises come back through, like... You see in the trailer where, like, Peter Parker goes to Doctor Strange and asks him to erase everyone's memory that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And Peter Parker keeps trying to change it at the last second, and it messes it up. And then, Doc Ock, Sandman, Electro, Lizard, and Green Goblin show up. And it was one villain away from being the Sinister Six. But it was still really cool to see Spider-Man fighting all 5 of those villains in one movie. It was it was really fun. It felt like something right out of the comics.
And this is nice considering there's been almost 20 years of cinematic Spider-Man now. This was like a nice kind of like acknowledgement of the fact that there's been almost 2 decades of Spider-Man on film. It was a nice love letter to all that stuff, I thought.
Yeah, and it was really great to see Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire back.
Yeah, spoiler, they both come back. Which, by the way, I genuinely knew nothing about any of this shit.
Oh, really?
Like, I knew... Because just for the listeners, I didn't care anything about this. I'm fine with Tom Holland and the MCU Spider-Man, but I didn't really care about it, and I was fine with not knowing anything about these movies. And I haven't watched any Marvel trailers since, like, I don't know, 2018 probably.
Oh, wow.
I just don't care. You know what I mean? So it's just not something I'm worried about. And when you told me, Jeff, that you were into this, I was like, oh, it's because, like, I heard Doctor Strange is in it.
Oh.
So I was like, oh, it's because, like, Jeff loves Doctor Strange and, like, the cinematic Doctor Strange, so that's why he's super into it. And I was so interested because of that. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's like a duo, like Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. And I thought that was a nice love letter to Steve Ditko because he obviously co-created with Stan Lee both those characters, Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. But I had no clue. I didn't know Doc Ock was in it. It's like as it was coming, I was like a baby. I was just like, what? Who? I mean, the whole time it was just like revelation after revelation. It was really cool.
I wish you could have been with me the first time I saw it because it was opening night and the audience like cheered.
Oh,
when
I can
every
imagine.
character showed up.
Yeah.
Particularly when like Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire showed up. Like the audience like erupted and my heart was racing and stuff. Like I was excited in a way that I didn't like. I was expecting them to show up just because from the commercials and the trailers I had seen, I knew that Doc Ock and Green Goblin were back. So I was like, well, if they're bringing in characters from the other movies, surely they're going to bring.
Oh, it definitely makes sense. Yeah.
And so even though I was expecting it to happen, when it did happen, it was like. I don't know, I got so excited like a little kid. I was like, oh, they're back!
It's funny because I was so into the idea of Endgame, the Avengers Endgame, that on social media I muted every Marvel character. I muted every Marvel character, the Avengers, Thanos, like the whole thing. And I wonder if that contributed to the fact that I didn't know any of this stuff.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm still pretty active on social media, knew none of this. Like I just walked in like totally brand new to it, so...
That's really surprising because anytime I go on social media, it's just like...
I can imagine,
just littered with that stuff, so that's awesome.
Yeah, because like I kind of feel like for so long now, the old school fans, it's almost like they're deliberately making stuff for us not to like it. It's almost kind of like a badge of honor for us to not like something at this point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like, oh yeah, of course they didn't like it. They're a bunch of basement dwelling trolls. Who wants them to like this stuff, you know? And it was just so nice to see these characters come back and they have like actual agency and they're like active and good and like heroic, and they get their moments where they get to actually shine and they're not losers. You know what I mean? Like it's just everything I wanted in these old school characters came back.
Yeah.
And it was just really touching to me. Like I love that there's someone creative out there in power that gave us what we wanted for once. It was very beautiful. I mean,
Yeah. They didn't bring in the other two Spider-Man and like, oh, well, everyone in my life is dead and I'm living destitute on the street, you know,
right.
like
Because
they're, you know, they're still good people, you know.
Exactly. And like, I think the impulse of the past few years with other franchises is you introduce the old characters in service of the new character.
Yeah.
So like, I really love that this Spider-Man movie didn't have the old Spider-Man come back and have Tom Holland just be better than them and like teach them all these different ways. And we're like, wow, why didn't I think of that? You know, like they had it where they were all equal footing and they all had things to contribute. And again, they all had like moments where it's like, oh, that's so beautiful. That's like cool that they got to have like a moment where they all get to be heroic and they all get to seize the gauntlet. And like your favorite character gets to like do something that makes you happy, you know, and not depressed. It's so atypical for a movie in 2021.
It is. It's kind of, it's surprising how many like touching scenes there are in it. Like there's that scene where the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man saves MJ, and it's like he kind of redeems himself for
parallels.
And then
with Gwen.
And it's just, I don't know. It's just, it's kind of heartwarming, but it's you know, it's also really sad too in a lot of parts. But like, man, I mean, I can't think of anything to like criticize this movie about. Like, there's nothing that I was like, well, that one thing. I thought of one thing though. I say that, and then I immediately go to something. But it's more, I think I just don't understand it. It's I don't know if it's necessarily a flaw, but like, so Doctor Strange asks Peter Parker to go get all the villains and bring them back to the Sanctum Sanctorum, and then he's gonna push the little button and they're all gonna go back to their home universes or whatever.
Right.
And then at the end of the movie, they're just kind of they've escaped, and he just kind of hits the button, and they all. Apparently, what I'm getting at is like, why did he have to have them all together? And why did he have to bring them all together?
It makes no sense. Yeah. No, it's kind of like a time travel type of thing where if you hold it up to any scrutiny, it won't really hold up.
Yeah.
Because I don't really understand why those specific characters got pulled into the main MCU in the first place. Like, what was the criteria for those villains to be pulled in, as opposed to like, say, Topher Grace's Venom?
Right.
Why wasn't he pulled in, or why wasn't James Franco's version of the Green Goblin pulled in? You know what I mean? Like, why were there those specific characters? You know,
they could have been, but we may have not, because like the two other Spider-Man were there. Like they weren't introduced until like halfway through the movie. So maybe the other characters were somewhere else, but that Tom
Holland were like found proactive.
Yeah. So I guess like, I mean, other than just like a way to continue the story, push the story forward, like bringing them all together, probably wasn't really necessary, but it was cool.
Yeah, I think that's something worth noting. Is that like, if your nerd brain is turned on to 10, you're definitely going to find flaws here. Like there will definitely be moments where like, why did that happen? Why did this happen?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. But as far as an emotional journey, I think it just is on 11. Like, I think it's perfect as far as emotionally what you want in a Spider-Man movie. And if you're a fan of all the movies for the past 20 years, you get a little something from all these characters. I thought Tobey Maguire was perfect, pitch perfect. I thought Andrew Garfield was like standout.
Oh yeah.
Like, I'll be shocked if they don't make another Amazing Spider-Man movie. If he wants to do it, I can't imagine Sony not being like, yeah, okay, we're gonna make our own Spider-Man movies now with this guy again. If he wants to do it, we're gonna do it. You know, I mean, because I just can't imagine the goodwill. It has to be pretty big right now for that guy.
Yeah. He was such a likable character in the movie, and I love that scene of him and Tobey Maguire when they're like waiting on the bad guys to show up at the Statue of Liberty. He's just like, you know, I forgot what he said. He was saying something. He's like, hey, you know, because I'm like an idiot or whatever. And he was like, hey, let's go back to that. Like, this negative self-talk, you gotta knock that out, man. Like, you're amazing. And then like, it was cool to hear him like, no, man, you're a good dude. You know,
the nerd in me really loved the organic web shooter talk too, because the other two Spider-Man are like, hold on, you have like. The web just shoots out of your wrist. You don't have to like make that webbing or anything. Because I remember like back in 2002 being like, hold on, that can't be, like, why are they doing that? Why are they making it where it's organic? Why wouldn't it be? Because since the 60s, Spider-Man has had to make his own web. It's been like
Yeah.
his own creation or whatever. So it was a really strange creative decision by Sam Raimi and company back in the day. But it was cool that they acknowledged it, I thought.
Yeah. And they made it really funny too, where they're like, "Does it come out of anywhere else?" Like,
Because it makes no sense that it would come out of his wrist if it was organic. It would totally come out of his ass.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it.
like I was telling you after I saw it the first time, I was like, I don't want this movie to be over. I want more of this. I want this, you know, and in particularly like the way it ends, where everything's reset, and I'm like, well, where's he gonna do now? And now he's got this like new suit that he made himself, and
it looks like very classic. It looks like the official Spider-Man. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see where this goes next.
Because spoiler, I mean, obviously, hopefully you've seen the movie if you're listening to us, but Peter Parker is reset by the end of this movie, where he is just an unknown regular Joe. He is back to the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man of comics. He doesn't know the Avengers. He's not rich. He's living in a small apartment in Queens. It's just perfect. It's exactly what Peter Parker's supposed to be.
And he doesn't have any of like
Tony Stark's crap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I get why they did that in the beginning, but I'm really, really glad that they've jettisoned it. It's cool to have them be reset.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see where this goes. I wonder when they're gonna do another one, but like who knows? Marvel's got like several characters that they're trying to make movies of.
Sure.
So they got to make that money.
It'd be kind of cool too to see the larger world, how Spider-Man interacts with these people, because he was a known commodity, and now none of these people know him anymore. So when he shows up to a big battle, they'll be like, "Who's this guy?" You know what I mean?
Well,
so it'll be kind of fun.
People remember Spider-Man; they just don't remember Peter
Good point.
Parker.
Good point.
So
Good point. Yeah.
He's still they'll still remember that he helped the Avengers, I think.
They just won't have any clue who the guy is behind the mask.
Right.
Yeah.
But that also creates some other issues, where, like with like Flash Thompson wrote that book about how Peter Parker's his best friend.
That's all just retconned. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how they'll handle that stuff, but I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, there's lots of hand waving in the MCU. We just have to kind of go with it.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, for me, this movie gets a 10 out of 10. It was.
I tend to agree. I do think it's something that the further away I get from it, the more I'll scrutinize it. But I don't think I'll ever forget emotionally how I felt walking out, because I genuinely had a good time. And again, it was just great to see all three of these Peter Parkers get their moments.
Yeah.
And all the villains too. Pretty much every villain had a cool moment.
Yeah.
And a time to shine. I thought Willem Dafoe was awesome as Norman Osborn again after so long. He did a great job.
Excellent.
And the Alfred
Molina.
Yeah, like he was great as Doc Ock, and great sympathetic and kind of like, you know, a little bit of a villain, but kind of like, you know, he's kind of cured at a certain point, so he's kind of helpful to the heroes. Yeah. It was nice.
I liked Jamie Foxx too.
Oh yeah,
I love
standout.
Yeah, I love that interaction with him and Andrew Garfield, where he was just like, I was kind of hoping you were going to be black.
Yeah,
and he's like, you think there's a black Spider-Man? He's like, huh?
Which, I mean, is again, you know, a little Easter egg or alluding to a larger world, because obviously we have Miles running around out there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm hoping there will be like a live action Miles Morales at some point.
I think that I bet
no-brainer.
I bet they'll do a Disney Plus TV show for him.
Oh, that would be cool.
Which will be a slam dunk. I mean, if they do that right, I'm looking forward to Miss Marvel. That's like one of the only Marvel shows I'm like, you know, kind of. She-Hulk could be cool too, depending on how they do it. So there's some fun stuff on the horizon. But this definitely gives me a lot of goodwill towards Marvel, where it's like, if they just kind of be a little hands off and let the creative people do what they're supposed to do, you know what I mean? Like, give people what they want every now and then. You know.
I liked some of the little Easter eggs too, like where, you know, at the end where or not even all at the end. There was like one at the beginning where what's his name? Doctor Strange is like doing the spell, and like I guess the multiverse is opening up, and you can see like the kind of silhouettes of different characters, and there's like Scorpion and Rhino and
I didn't even notice that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there was one guy that I think is supposed to be Craven because he's like holding a staff.
Oh, nice.
Those are the only three that I really noticed. But like at the end, there was like that was where I saw Rhino and Craven, and at the beginning is where I saw Scorpion. So
Well, isn't the next Doctor Strange called like In the Multiverse of Madness?
yeah,
Wouldn't it be crazy if they just went balls out and they were just like, they had scenes where like every Punisher every actor that's played
wow.
Punisher shows up at one point. I mean, that would be, I mean, like, as silly as it sounds, I think that would be fun if they did it the right way. I mean, I doubt that'll happen, but I mean, just imagine if it was like Thomas Jane and Dolph Lundgren. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
That'd be great.
That'd be cool. They had a Lou Ferrigno cameo, maybe. Have him like, you know, like, I don't know, just little things like that. It could be really cool. Who knows?
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen a movie that made me feel this excited, and like maybe it's been a long time since I've seen a movie that I didn't want to end. Like usually, like by the time the movie's over, I'm like, all right, I'm ready to wrap this up. You know, like the last couple Marvel movies I saw, they were 2.5 hours and they felt 2.5 hours.
Definitely.
Like, not that they were bad, it just sort of, you know, it's like I was aware of how long they were, but this movie felt like it just went by super fast for me.
Remember when you very first texted me about this movie, what did you say about Ghostbusters Afterlife compared to this?
I don't remember word for word, but I was basically saying like this movie succeeds in doing what Ghostbusters Afterlife was trying to do and failed. At least to me, it failed.
I just so agree with you. I can't agree with you more. I mean, like Afterlife, like I don't understand how someone could see this movie, Spider-Man No Way Home, and not feel kind of embarrassed for Ghostbusters Afterlife, because it's so just hollow compared to this. Like these Spider-Man movies took some time to like build up to something and do something really special, and Afterlife was just so hollow and like artificial. It's like a commercial that like all these Christmas commercials that make you feel bad about people being alone on Christmas. It's like that's what Afterlife was. It was like schmaltzy, manipulative bullshit that didn't mean anything. In this
like,
movie,
remember we made you cry? Now go buy the Ghost of Harold Ramis action figure.
Like, how could someone see that and be like, I need that? It's like, oh God, like they're manipulating you. Like they're taking you for a ride. You know,
But this one felt I didn't feel like I was being manipulated. I didn't feel like they were like, let's try to make the audience cry. It felt like my reaction felt very genuine, and it felt, you know, like particularly like the scene with Aunt May.
Yeah.
Because I also didn't see that coming. I didn't know that was going to be happening in this movie, so I was surprised when that happened. And but she's such a likable character and a great actress, you know.
But I feel like, you know, the new Star Wars sequels or Ghostbusters, they would try to do all this stuff in the very first installment.
Yeah.
Whereas Spider-Man, you know, you've seen Tom Holland play this character, 6 times now? I mean, he's been in
least.
you know, he's been in Civil War, 2 Avengers movies, and now this is the 3rd Spider-Man movie. So you've seen him 6 times now. You've seen Tobey Maguire play the part 3 times, Andrew Garfield a couple of times. Like, they took time to like weave something. And granted, they had the luxury of doing that, so it's a little unfair. But like that's why this has so much weight and it matters a little bit and you feel something. Whereas like all these new things where they're trying to reboot things, they're trying to force it on you immediately. Yeah. They're not even giving you a chance to breathe and like take it in. They just want you to feel something as quick as they can.
Yeah.
It's like grown in a lab to make you feel something, and just feels so hollow to me.
Yeah, like when Tobey Maguire shows up, it's like seeing an old friend. You're like, I remember that guy. Yeah. Like, I've spent 3 movies with this dude. And I liked some of the callbacks to the previous movies that weren't. That's another thing is like that they did that Ghostbusters failed at, which was like Ghostbusters was like, hey, look, remember the Twinkie? Like all this stupid
shit.
like
they
stuff.
Didn't do any of that stuff. Yeah.
In Spider-Man, there's like, if they made a reference to one of the previous movies, it like felt organic and natural, like where Tobey Maguire's trying to pop his back, you know? Yeah. He's like, I got a back thing. It was like, oh yeah, from that movie where he fell and he was like, oh, my back. And it's just like...
It wasn't a bunch of Easter egg bullshit.
Yeah.
It was like genuine storytelling. Yeah.
Yeah, it was well done. I'm very pleased. And it's great to like walk away from a movie theater experience and feel satisfied. Like, oh, that was good. That was,
For sure. You know how happy I was to see Tobey Maguire just look like Tobey Maguire, just a little older?
Yeah.
Because, like, I know the impulse for a lot of creative people would be, he's got to have a beard. He's got to have a beard. He's got to be limping a little bit. There's got to be something. He maybe even needs a cane. Like, he needs something to show that he's haggard and he's been through something. But it was cool that he's just like, no. He's like a 40-ish, Spider-Man now. And that doesn't mean that he is just automatically horrible. Like, he can still be happy. He can still be happy. He can still be heroic. And that's what you want to see in your heroes. You want to see them succeed. You don't want to see them always be deconstructed and failures and depressed. Like, that's... Oh.
Yeah.
So thank you, the
Pay
filmmakers.
attention to this, people who make Star Wars.
Yeah, if you make some more Star Wars sequels and they involve the old characters, by all means, let them be heroic. Don't let them be just horrible. Well, they're all dead, so it doesn't really matter.
You can't really do it
Who
now.
cares?
Like,
Okay, yeah, never mind.
they're all,
dead. That's fine. It's fine.
But
maybe that was good for us. We just got rid of all of it.
they all were miserable and died. But not Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Spider-Man. We got to see the 2 old Spider-Man come back and still save the day and be genuinely good people.
Yeah.
Like, that's the other thing about this is, like, I liked Tom Holland okay as Spider-Man up until this point, but I feel like this is the first movie where I was like, I really, really liked him as Peter Parker.
For sure,
I was just
yeah.
like, I like this kid. Like,
I agree.
and I think part of it is just like we see. We genuinely see like that he is a good person because, like, he's Doctor Strange wants to send all these bad guys back to their own universe, but Peter Parker realizes if that happens, they're all going to die, and so because he's a good-hearted person, he's like, well, why don't we try to help them rather than like just sending them back and let somebody else deal with it? And I think that's a really like great quality and a heroic character to like just be a decent guy,
I agree. Like, that's very classic Peter Parker, and I do think the movie would have benefited a little bit if they had gone the Looper route of time travel, where they had just acknowledged, like, hey, this is multiverses, this is time travel, don't think too much, because it doesn't make that much sense. Like, if Doctor Strange had kind of taken some authority and just said, some of this isn't going to make that much sense, but just go with it. Because, like, as I'm leaving, I'm kind of starting to think, hold on, why did this happen? And why did this person come at this point? And you know what I mean? Like, it kind of doesn't... I'm sure there's someone out there listening that's like, no, it totally makes sense. They explained it. But in my head, walking out of the theater, I'm kind of like questioning, why were they taken at that exact moment? And why were these characters, in those...
I mean, I'm assuming it was random because, like, Doc Ock apparently was taken right at that point, right before he died in the second movie. But then Peter Parker is like 45,
right?
So he's from years later. But even Doc Ock, doesn't he? One of the other characters like sees him and they're like, "Hey, didn't one of them say something about him like looking older, being grown up, or something?" Or?
Yeah, I've forgotten who it was, but you're totally right. Someone does mention. I think Doc Ock actually mentions that about Tobey Maguire at one point.
He's like, "Oh, look at you, you're all grown up," or something.
And obviously, Mysterio, Jamie Foxx looks totally different because in the Electro looks like Electro looks completely different because he's like blue, and then in his human form he has like a bad comb over and buck teeth and everything. In this version they choose to use the star power of Jamie Foxx and just have him look like Jamie Foxx normal. So they kind of quietly don't acknowledge the fact that, I mean, I do think Andrew Garfield mentions he looks different, but they don't really explain it. They just kind of go with it. I mean,
that's the thing. They do point it out, but they don't explain it. Like, even Electro's like, he's like, no, I like this universe. I like this new body.
Right.
So I'm glad they at least acknowledged it, because like that was a thing I was seeing like on the previews and stuff. Like, people on Facebook were commenting, like, or I saw a meme or whatever. It was like, he's like, everyone's talking about like, why is Electro blue? It's like, no, how does Electro have hair?
This looks totally different.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like, we're old school comic book people, and obviously each artist has a different interpretation of how these characters look. So I can kind of roll with a lot of that stuff. I mean, that stuff doesn't really bother me that much, I guess.
Yeah, and in my mind, I could kind of dismiss it in that, like, he had all this power from that electrical stuff that maybe, like, that changed his body in some ways.
Sure, he
maybe
could just kind of personify himself a different way, yeah.
So maybe whatever it was...
Headcanon.
Yeah.
We're already explaining it. I
Yeah.
like it. Kudos to the filmmakers. I think it's John Watts. Isn't that the director's name?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it. And remember when you go see a movie and everyone liked it and it wasn't just people arguing about it?
Yeah.
I think this is it. This is the movie where I feel like anyone could go into this and enjoy it on some level. I'm not saying everyone's going to love it, but everyone's going to like it.
Yeah.
And, it's just different.
That's the thing. I can't imagine anyone leaving and being like, that sucked.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
It was, I mean...
If you're going to a Spider-Man movie, I think you'll enjoy it. If you like Spider-Man.
I will say it's also helpful if you've seen the previous 5 Spider-Man movies.
It helps. But I think just a general knowledge will take you a long way. I mean, just knowing who plays who, in the originals or the previous installments.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I feel like most people who go to see this movie have seen at least a few of the Spider-Man movies. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of, Kia. Like, she's seen all 5 of them. She's just not going to be like... what do you call it? It's not like ingrained in her memory or whatever, but she's definitely seen all 5. So I think most casual moviegoers will feel that way. Well, they'll have some kind of touchstone to most of these characters.
Well, I say 5. There's 7 other ones, right?
Well, if you count the Tom Holland.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Of the 7 Spider-Man movies that exist, I've only watched like 2 of them more than once. So like it would be kind of nice to go back and refresh my memory and rewatch all the Spider-Man movies at some point. That might be kind of fun.
And who knows what this might lead to? I mean, again, more Andrew Garfield movies. Yeah. I mean, if they back up the money truck, Tobey Maguire might come back for more. I mean, who knows? I mean, they all seemed game. They all did a great job.
Yeah, and I was seeing on Facebook today, people had like petitions and stuff that they were like wanting Andrew Garfield to come back and do Amazing Spider-Man 3. Somebody had like photoshopped Emma Stone as Spider-Gwen.
I think people wanted that back in the day, a few years back. Yeah.
I definitely think Spider-Gwen would be really cool. I think that would, like, even if she gets like her own standalone movie or whatever.
Well, in the comics, she's in her own pocket universe anyway, originally. So, I mean, they could totally just run with it. And if Emma Stone doesn't want to do it, they can just have another actor play the part.
Because I like that character in Into the Spider-Verse, the animated version, and I know that like she's a for like little girls, they really like Spider-Gwen, because I used to have some little girls in my life and they were like really excited about her.
She has a cool costume and persona, and like I'm pretty sure in the main MCU they've eventually drafted in Miles Morales. He's like another Spider-Man. And I'm pretty sure Gwen Stacy is part of it now, too. They've just drafted in those characters where they're all part of the main universe now. So there's a precedent for it going forward. Unfortunately, Sony owns all those characters.
I know.
So we'll see how that works out.
Make some more deals with Marvel. That's the
Surely
funny thing.
they will. I mean, good grief.
They have to, because, like, Sony does not know what they're doing on their own. Like... Well, I say that...
They do, though, because Venom made a shitload of money, even though they're not good movies.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking of, was the Venom movies. But, the other 5... Well, I'll be honest, I didn't like Amazing Spider-Man 2, but it wasn't because of Andrew Garfield or any of the actors.
They were just trying really hard to make their own cinematic universe, so they crammed in a lot of stuff, trying to like spin it off into other movies, and it was just too crammed.
Yeah, I mean, that one kind of fell flat for me. But I actually liked the first Amazing Spider-Man, and I liked the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans too. But the third one definitely had some problems.
Well, and for what little I know about it, I think there was a lot of studio mingling, like what do you call it? Like studio
tampering. Or whatever.
Tampering, because I think he wanted to just do straight up Sandman.
Yeah.
And they were the ones that were like, no, we gotta have Venom, and that's why it feels so like mishmashed, like separate movies.
Yeah, I'd read that like Sam Raimi doesn't even like Venom. They just kind of forced him to do it, and he was just like, I don't even like this character, which it kind of shows when you watch the movie.
Yeah, definitely. It's like,
this is the stupid thing you guys wanted. Here it is. we go. Big thumbs up recommendation for Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah. And I can't think of a better way to have 100 episodes of Half-Assed Horrorcast related material than us ecstatic outside of a local theater having watched a Spider-Man movie. Good stuff. Good stuff.
And we could tie it into being a horror movie in some way, right?
Doctor Strange is mystical, and that's kind of magic, witchcraft related.
There's
you know,
there's a lizard man. He's kind of scary looking.
Kind of scary.
That works.
A goblin.
Yeah. An octopus man. All right. Well, signing off.
Yes.
Thanks for listening.
Check out Spider-Man. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Half-Assed Horrorcast. You can find us on Instagram at Half-Assed Horrorcast, Facebook at Half-Assed Horror, Twitter at HA Horrorcast, and you can send us an email at halfassedhorrorcast@gmail.com or visit our website halfassedhorrorcast.com.